number 13, we're going to be talking about solving one-step equations again, but this time we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing. And a bit of practice in your homework and on the quiz with adding and subtracting in one-step equations. And so today we're going to be talking about solving one-step equations with division and multiplication. So we're going to be using the same sort of steps that we used for subtraction and addition to identify what we need to do. So we're going to again do these by example. I'm going to talk you through these. Okay, so we're going to look at this first one, and the first one is going to say if I have 8x equals 32. Well, we're going to need to figure out what we need to isolate. Well, we're going to isolate the x, right? We know that we need to solve for x. So then since we've identified what we're going to solve for, we need to figure out what we need to get rid of. Well, we see that the 8 is attached to the x. We need to get rid of that 8. So how is that 8 attached to the x? It is multiplied to the x. So in order to get rid of it, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to divide by 8. We're going to divide both sides by 8. When we divide these two, those cancel each other out, become a 1, leaving us with x on the left and leaving us with 4 on the right. Okay, so we are going to have x equals 4. And don't forget, you should have written your objective right in here, okay? So let's look at maybe another one that might help us. If I have negative 7y is equal to negative 91. Okay, so we're going to say, what do I need to identify? I need to isolate the y. And how do I isolate the y? Well, I need to figure out what I need to get rid of to make the y by itself. I can see that the negative 7 is touching the y, so I have to get rid of that. So how do I get rid of that? Well, that is attached to the y by multiplication. So I'm going to divide, since it's multiplied, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 7. And when I look at this, I could say, oh, look, two negatives. We learned that when we have two negatives, they're going to equal a positive. And when I divide all of that out, I'm going to get a positive 13 because 7 goes into 91 13 times. Okay, sometimes you might be able to leave it as a fraction, but in this case, it was evenly divisible. So let's try maybe some what we might solve by multiplication. So let's look at 3. And remember that fractions, they kind of look scary, but really they're just giant division problems. Because this one here is going to say I have a negative 3. This is h divided by negative 3 is equal to 6. Well, I'd like to isolate h. And in order to isolate h, I'm going to need to get rid of the negative 3. How is the h attached to the negative 3? Well, there's a division sign, that line. It tells us it's dividing by a negative 3. So in order to get rid of that division, that negative 3 that's divided there, I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to multiply everything on this side by a negative 3. And I'm going to multiply everything on this side by a negative 3. If you look here, when we multiply by a negative 3, these two become 1, so they cancel out. So this just becomes h. And a negative times a positive is a negative, so we have a negative. 6 times 3 is 18. And if we try another one, we might say that we have b over negative 4 is equal to 12. Well, I need to isolate b. In order to isolate b, I have to get rid of negative 4. Negative 4 is attached to b by division, and that little line is going to tell us that's division. So in order to get rid of division, I need to do multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by a negative 4. And that's going to leave me, oh look, these two cancel out. So that's going to leave me with a b on the left. And on the right, we're going to have 12 times 4, but there's a positive times a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative, and 12 times 4 is 48. And that is going to be our answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a few more to help you make sure we got this. So this is 5. We'll do 5 and 6 for sure. Let's do 7x is equal to 49 for 5. And for 6, we're going to do a divided by 3 is equal to negative 27. Ooh, how about negative 20? That a little better. I'm going to ask you to stop the video and solve these yourself. So we're going to put a pause on this. So go ahead and pause, work out the problem yourself, and then unpause it and see if your answer matches mine. So now that you've solved it, I'm going to solve it with you. So this should be after you've pushed the restart button. This is 7 attached to the x. This is attached by multiplication, so we're going to divide both sides by 7. And that's going to leave us x is equal to 7, since 49 divided by 7 is 7. Here we have a divided by 3, so we're going to multiply everything by 3 here and everything by 3 here, leaving us with a on the left equal to 3 times negative 20. We'll have a negative times a positive, so it's going to be a negative, and 20 times 3 is going to be a 60. Okay, so if you have any more questions, you can go ahead and ask me. Otherwise, you're going to get started on your homework, which should be in Canvas, and hopefully we'll have a little more time to play a little bit of more review games. If you have any questions, please let me know.